Welcome back to the Knit Yorker podcast, the podcast where we talk all about knitting. It's been a while, I think, since I've last had a video, and for good reason. I have been traveling, and I think I mentioned this on one of my last videos that I had this huge trip coming up to the UK. I've never been to the UK. My husband and I have wanting to go for a long time, and we both are really into all kinds of British culture, honestly, from music to books to pretty much anything you can think of, TV, movies, etc., etc. So it was a huge thing for us to go, and I know I have some UK friends on my channel, so thank you so much for receiving me in your country. it was so great. And of course, there were not a lot of knitting things happening during this trip. It was mostly a vacation, so we did a lot of touristy things, and I wanted to talk about it, show you a little bit of what we did, what I got, what I was knitting, and everything around that. This trip, it was a little over a week, and so we packed a lot in it. We started in London, then we took a little tour guide trip, day trip, to Stonehenge and Bath, which was really, really fun. I'm a big Jane Austen fan, so obviously going to Bath was a must, and I love the city, and I love the Jane Austen Centre. Everything about it was great. And then we went to Scotland, which also was really high in my bucket list of travel. And in Scotland, we spent some time in Edinburgh, and then we went up to the Highlands in a tour, little just one day trip. It just made me want to come back. That's all I can say. To all of those places, I had a great time. And I try to fit as much knitting related things that I could. Of course, being Britain, there is a lot of knitting happening. It's the spring, so it was lambing season, which meant we saw a lot of sheep with their little lambs. I took so many videos of just the sheep that we would see out in the English countryside, which was adorable. I was trying to fit as many knitting stores as I could, but it was hard, folks. I gotta say, mostly because our trip, like I said, was so full of things that we wanted to do. And yarn stores, I've noticed, not just in the UK, but also in the US and Canada, and everywhere I've tried to go to a yarn store, always have the weirdest hours. They always open kind of late and close kind of early, and they have weird random days that they're not open, which meant it was real work to try to find a yarn store that was open during the times that I had allotted to try and find one, right? So in the end, I only end up going to one yarn store, which is kind of sad, but at least I was able to fit one and get some yarn. The first yarn store that I tried to go to and that was closed was Beautiful Knitters, which is in Pimlico in London. And I thought I had checked before we went that it was opened, but I guess I looked at the wrong day or something, and then it was closed. It's funny because they were closed every single day that we were in London. So it was not even a possibility. It was a cute little store, though. I saw it from the outside, and it was nice. It was like a very London building, sadly closed. And then the other two stores that I tried to go, but I looked up ahead of time and I realized they were going to be closed. I think it was Loop and Stash. Correct me if I'm wrong, that was what it's called. And those were more northeast, but yeah, it just didn't work out with our schedule. So, and they were just closed when I was there. So I couldn't go to them. I didn't even try this time. And it was kind of sad. I really wanted to go to a London yarn store, which only means I have to go back. That's all it means for me. But I did end up going to one yarn store, and this was in Bath. Funny enough, I was only there for an afternoon in Bath, but I made it a priority to try to find this yarn store because it was more Bath is smaller to begin with, so that helps. London's huge, as all of you Londoners know. And me as a New Yorker, I think I realized that I'm so used to New York is big and so full of people, but it's a small island for Manhattan, and you can see a lot in a lot of short time, and you can travel all over quite fast actually. Like sometimes from one stop to another is only a few blocks. So being in the tube and going really far distances was like new and unexpected. I mean, I knew it was gonna be big, but I wasn't prepared. I think it's one of the biggest cities I've been to, other than Mexico City maybe. So yeah, that really hindered the amount of time that we had to go to this place or that place, do this and that, and of course make some time for shopping. But in Bath, I did end up going to a yarn store, and the yarn store is just called Wool, which is perfect. And it's actually kind of hidden. You kind of have to go around a little in between two houses, like a little street that's hidden. I'm pretty sure that maybe it didn't allow cars. It was like a pedestrian street. I might be misremembering. It was a beautiful day in Bath. It was quite empty, actually. I don't know if because of the spring or it's just, I don't know what it was. I think it was like a random Tuesday that might have helped. But it was a really nice weather and really empty. So it really felt like we had the whole city for ourselves almost. And so we found this yarn store, Wool, and I loved it's just a little store, and I loved it. It was so cute, and everybody was really nice, very helpful. I couldn't remember the difference between 2-ply and 3-ply and that whole thing. So they were really helpful as I asked questions. And my goal always when I travel is to try to get local yarn. When I was in Canada last year, in Montreal, I was able to get some Quebec yarn. And now I wanted to, of course, get British yarn at the very least. So I did find something that I really liked. I got 2 skeins of this yarn. It's literally says Wool Local, 100% British, born in Britain, made in the UK. So I was like 100% know that this is British yarn. I chose it because I wanted something that was more fingering weight, and I think this is fingering weight. Again, we went back and forth like 2-ply, 3-ply, 1-ply. What does that mean? But I just by looking at it, I could tell it was fingering weight. Mostly, I 3 things. I wanted fingering weight, I wanted it to be local, and I wanted it to have a pretty color. So I ended up with this kind of pinkish color. Honestly, I think it might even have been the first yarn that I grabbed and that I saw, and I put it back, and then I just kept looking at the yarn. I was like, oh, but this color is so nice. So I ended up buying it. I think I paid maybe around $45 for these 2 skins. So, regular price. It's called Erica Knight, and all it says is 100% wool, and the color is Rosedale Pale Pink. I don't know what I'm going to make with it. I got to make some nice. I got 2 skeins, and each one has 492 yards. I ended up getting fingering weight because I feel like so many of the projects that I've been working on lately have been fingering and that are in my queue. So that means this is around 1,000 yards. I think it's pretty good. That's why I got only 2, because I felt like that was enough for either making like a simple, like a little top, maybe a sleeveless, or a shawl or something like that. I didn't really have something specific in mind yet, but I'm sure I'll find something. And I really like just the color, the feel, everything about it. And it says here that they try to support British heritage textile mills and promote native sheep breeds. So I really thought that this was exactly what I was looking for, something local and beautiful, and that's what I got. So I'm really happy with the purchase. It's also like regular wool, like not superwash or anything like that, which I'm glad about. So yeah, if you have any suggestions of what I could make with this about 1,000 yards of fingering weight yarn, maybe it's a little more like sport. It could be either. I think I could make it work with the gauge for either of those. For my British yarn, let me know. I wish I had gotten more of other yarn, but I just, again, when I have the options, I get a little overwhelmed, and I end up not buying as much. And also, I did make that video earlier this year where I was talking about how I want to not buy any yarn this year. This is the only yarn I've bought in the entire year so far. which I think it's a big accomplishment. I've been using the yarn from my stash, and I count this as a souvenir, not as a yarn purchase. It's, instead of getting, I don't know, like a random t-shirt or something like that, I get yarn from wherever I go. So that was the idea, and that's why it doesn't count. But I do wish I had been able to go to more yarn stores, especially in Scotland. I was dying to get some Scottish yarn, but the way things turned out, the first day we were there, I think it was in the afternoon, it was already late. So all we did that first day was walk around. We were in Edinburgh, and we went to the Dean Village. So if you know, that is this little path of houses around like a stream. It's beautiful, and it was very peaceful. We even ended up in some green area. I don't even know what it's called, but we just walked all around there and had like a peaceful first afternoon and then dinner. So it wasn't until the next day that we were more busy and like doing sightseeing, went to the castle, all that stuff, the Royal Mile. If you've ever been to Edinburgh, it's such a gorgeous city. Again, yarn stores closed early, and they were a little farther out. They were not in like the old town area, the center of Edinburgh. It was a little farther off. And I remember after we had walked the whole Royal Mile, which basically the way that it's set up, the city is set up, the old part of it is there's this giant castle at the top of this extinct volcano, the top of a little hill, basically big hill actually, and then all the street that goes down directly from the castle to the end of that hill is called the Royal Mile, which is I think they say it was like 1.1 miles. And then at the bottom there's Holyrood Palace, which is where the royals stay when they visit Edinburgh, and it's also where a lot of things have been filmed. For example, I think Outlander, there was something filmed there, if I'm not incorrect, or at least set there. So we walked that entire street, and that meant that it was more than half our trips. We've been walking so much. We were exhausted. We were so tired. We've been out and about all morning. I think it was already the afternoon. We were hungry. So we had lunch, and we kind of went back to our hotel and crashed for a bit. And then I realized, you know what? I'm not going to have enough time to find the yarn stores, which were farther down. And so at that moment, I had to make a choice of like, do I want to rest more and then go back out, find a pub, have more good time, or do I want to use this time to go to yarn stores? I wish I had more energy and that I could have gone to the yarn stores, but I didn't, and they were closed the next day. I think it was a weekend. So it just made it really hard for me to go to more yarn stores, and I wanted to talk to you about all of them, but I ended up only going to one. And it made me realize that if I want to do like a yarn tour or something of Britain, I have to go and just do that and nothing else. And that wasn't fair for our trip, for our vacation. So that just means I have to organize another trip where I just go to yarn stores. So this time I didn't. But what I did do is knit a lot. So I also mentioned this on my last video, that I wanted to bring small projects with me so that they wouldn't take up much space. I like to travel light. We only brought one carry-on, like rolling bag, each of us, and a backpack. So that's how we were moving all around. And I'm glad that we did that, because that makes you more conscious of how much you're bringing with you and how much you're buying and everything. And it also makes it so much easier to travel and get in and out of flights and trains and cars and everything. So I'm glad we did that. But that meant also that I had less space. So I brought 2 small projects, and I finished both during the trip. I started them both right before I went on the trip, and I finished them during or at the end of it. So it came out perfect. I'm glad. I was a little worried that it wasn't going to be enough for the entire trip, because we did have a lot of bus rides and train rides and flights. So I knew I was going to have a lot of time to knit, and I did. But it worked out perfectly, and I think I'm going to start to do that more often instead of bringing tons of projects with me. So what projects did I bring and finish? This is the first project that I was working on. So this was made with a yarn that I had left over from another project, which was the Owlery blouse I made very recently. I made a whole video about it if you want to see more of that. I had a little bit left of both the mohair and the actual yarn, which was Bare Naked Wool's fingering yarn. And then the mohair was a loft from Knitpick. So I had enough for a really small project, and I had been looking at these small scarves. I think there's several versions of by different designers of these little scarves. It's not complicated at all. It's basically just a long strip of yarn. It has some short rows, so it gives it kind of a shape in the middle, and then it ends in kind of like a diagonal. So yeah, it was the nice thing about this. I don't know if you can see, but it is a herringbone. I can never say that. Herringbone stitch. I recently made a scarf that I gifted that was also all herringbone stitch. Herringbone stitch. So I was kind of familiar with the stitch recently, and that was kind of easy to do it. And I don't know, I just liked that it was simple but nice, and it was a very small project, and I was able to bring it along the entire trip, and I finished this during my flight back. So I had it the whole project. I mean, I had two projects, so I was working between the two of us, and I did kind of leave this one for the end. So it's a nice little scarf, as you can see. Very small. It goes around your neck. It wraps around. Ta-da! So that's the idea of the scarf. It's called the Bibliothèque scarf, and it is a design by Heather Nolan from Owlery Knits. I hope I said that right. It's in Irish, I think. And then the other project that I brought with me is this hat, which is called the Picot hat and hand warmers by Purl Soho. It's a free pattern, and it really is just a beanie. But the nice thing about it is it has this nice, cute little Picot edge, double brim too, so it was really nice and warm. And I made it with Purl Soho Cashmere Merino Bloom, which I love. It's the same yarn that I used for other projects before, and it was a whole skein that I had just in my stash and that I didn't know what to do with. So I made almost the entire hat on the trip, and I actually finished it on the train on my way to Scotland, which was perfect because my plan was to wear it while in Scotland, and I did. So I have a lot of great pictures wearing this in Scotland. It was sometimes a little cold and windy, even when the sun was out. So it was nice to have something soft and warm around my head and my ears, especially with the wind. And I really like the color, and it's, probably not going to wear it much until next winter. But I do have a deficit of hats right now. I do wear hats a lot in the winter, and I feel like I've made a lot, but I mostly gift them. So it's time to make some for myself. So it's nice to add one more. So what am I making now? That's the big question. I feel like once it starts to get warm, even if it's not warm every day, I kind of don't know what to knit anymore, because I don't want something big and heavy to have like a whole, big project. But I also don't want to not knit at all. So I'm still working through my stash. So I decided to make a cardigan, but I don't know, it's the type of cardigan that is very loungy, I would say. It's a cardigan that even if I don't finish it, I think I'm gonna take the project the same way as the actual finished product is supposed to be taken, which is, again, loungy, relaxed, chill, slow, no deadline, just kind of easy. And it is the Kal cardigan, Kal, like knit along, and it's made by Perfectly Knotted. And again, it's like the classic, I call it grandpa cardigan, that is a little oversized. And in general, I need more cardigans in my life. I only have like one or two that I've ever made, and I don't know, I feel like they're nice and versatile and good for in between seasons, which is now, and I'm definitely not gonna have it ready for this in between season, but for the fall for sure. I literally have this much. It's knit in an interesting way. I didn't realize the construction was gonna be that interesting. Basically, you start knitting half brioche, for the back of the cardigan, like around the neck, and then you pick up from the side and start building the cardigan. So you're knitting the half brioche edge and the actual cardigan at the same time, something like that. I haven't read the whole pattern through, so I'm figuring it out as I go. But I am making it with Malabrigo yarn, Rios, which I got this yarn, I think last year when I was on a trip to LA randomly. I mean, obviously, I did not get local yarn, but I did buy yarn, and I got enough that I didn't really know what to do with it. And this is worsted or DK, I forget. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's kind of like a purplish grayish color. So yeah, I had enough for this cardigan, and I've been wanting to make it for a while. So going back to my stash and to yarn that I bought on trips. But it's nice to start fresh because that's the only project I have in my needles right now, incredibly. I feel like for so long I had a lot that I was juggling, but because of this trip, I came to a stop. I had finished everything and I started new things and I finished them on the trip. So now I'm back to 0 and well, 1. So I don't really have anything else happening for my knitting, and I think I should very soon start something else. I might start making more summery projects. I have a few summer tops that I have in mind. I feel like make at least one every year. And this year I think I might make the very famous Ripple crop top by Jessie Mate. That I feel like everybody was making this a year or two ago when it first came out. But it's such a beautiful top and it looks really versatile, so that might be another project that I cast on very soon. Yeah, that's all I have going on. I always kind of slow down my knitting once the summer feels closer and closer, and I kind of pivot more to sewing projects just because when it's really hot here, it gets really hot. But anyway, that was all the knitting stuff related to the UK. I had a wonderful time. Like I said, I can't wait to go back. And for all my UK friends, if you saw my Instagram, if you in this video see all the things that I did, let me know what I missed. What should I do next time I visit? I want to go back to other parts of England. Classic visiting places. I'm a big Beatles fan, so I think I have to go to Liverpool at some point. I would love to see Oxford, and then I would love to go to Ireland too at some point. And I want to go back to Scotland and see other parts of it. I want to go to the Isle of Skye or go to a mill, go to more yarn stores. Actually, touch a sheep. I don't know. I guess that'll be next trip. I definitely will be coming back. I really loved it. But now I'm back in the US, back into normal life, more projects coming along. I hope you enjoy this little recap of both my trip and the yarny things related to it. And yeah, let me know where should I go next and what you want to see, because there's the whole summer coming up and I have a few ideas of videos relating to summer patterns. Keep an eye out for those. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and you have a great knitting, whatever it is, whatever it is you're doing, that you have a great time knitting. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.